Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we docked together these two communication satellites, and now we need to put them in some semblance of a proper orbit. So, we've got a little bit of fuel left over in this tank, heavy on the little. And that's understood. How much fuel do we have in this tank at this point? Some. Definitely some. Okay, I'm going to shut down this engine for now. And we're going to operate just off of this engine for the moment. Okay, this might be a little bit awkward here, but what we need to do is we need to raise our orbit back up here. And it kind of doesn't matter where we do this. We're in a bit of an inclination. Do we care? Is something that we should ask the question to. Well, we could change our inclination here, but I think I'm going to wait on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a maneuver here. And we're just going to push this up prograde. And yes, we're retrograde to the planet, or rather to Minmus, but that doesn't matter. So I'm just going to push this up until just before escape velocity. So that's going to be right about there. 15.8 meters per second. Okay, what are we thrust limited to? 1. Okay, I want to thrust limit this engine down to about 3% for now. I'm also going to thrust limit this engine pretty heavily. So we'll just leave that be for the time being. Now, I want to lock to the node. And I want to make sure that we are controlling from here. This Probodobodyne Octo. Okay. So we'll do that for now. And then 15.8 meters per second. Let's go. So we're going to warp on over. Oh, right, we're retrograde. It doesn't matter. We're going to go all the way around, I guess. Sure. I was intending to have this be much closer, but this is fine. So we're about 1 minute away. It doesn't matter if we do this super soon, because we're just going to be circularizing up there. But this is fine. So let's just push this on out. And we should have enough delta V to get this burn completed, although it looks like we want to unthrust limit this a little bit, maybe. Let's take this up to about 5%. Okay. So we're just going to push this guy right on out here. Okay. About like that. That'll do. So next, we're going to burn at the apoapsis to circularize this up. And that's going to be something about like this. There we go. We're going to have to do some inclination changes. That's absolutely fine. And you can see that the game thinks that we don't have enough delta V to do this. It's actually wrong, but this is fine for the moment. Okay, so let's warp around to that. Okay. So this is looking fine for now. And we're going to commence this burn shortly, although we're going to need to be on the node. There we go. Claiming a burn time of 6 minutes, huh? This engine is deactivated right now. It's going to be activated when we stage this, I think. We're going to manually do that. That'll be fine. Okay. So at this point, we've got about 40 seconds remaining. So let's go ahead and warp forward. 30, 20, 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. So we're going to burn out the last of this, and then I'm going to stage, and then apparently stage again. There we go. And now I'm going to activate this engine. And we're going to burn some of this fuel. You can see that the game is very confused about what we're doing right now. That's fine. It can be that. So we're just going to get this burn completed here, and get ourselves nice and circularized. Then we can go for a... We can go for a burn that is going to put ourselves into a better inclination. So we could do an inclination change burn here, or we could just say this is good enough. We're pretty much in plane with the orbit of Minmus, and I think I'm just going to say that this is good enough. So that'll be fine for now. We'll put this into kill rot, and then we are going to pull any of the fuel that is here, because this is where this needs to be, right? So we're going to pull any of the fuel that is still here into here that we can, and just make sure that this is fully fueled. There we go. So that looks good. Now I'm going to undock this. So we're going to undock. There we go. This guy is going to remain where he is. This one is going to go into a polar orbit. So that's absolutely fine. So at this juncture, I want to go somewhere around here, approximately. And we're just going to pull this up into some semblance of a or rather of a polar orbit. And as you can see, that's going to require a little bit of fine-tuning. Let's bring this down a bit. Okay, a little bit of prograde here, awkwardly enough. And then this is getting pretty close to a polar orbit. We're not quite where we want to be. Actually, this is definitely close enough. Yeah, this is close enough. And the polar orbit is basically acting as a prograde and retrograde at this point. So we can just do something kind of like this. This is good enough. Absolutely. So that's going to be 41.6 meters per second. Now, I kind of want to do it with the monoprop. That's maybe a terrible idea, but I kind of want to do it with the monoprop. Let's see how that goes. We'll warp around here, and we'll get ourselves into position for this burn. So, Mystery Goo observations. Wonderful. We haven't gotten half of that yet, so that's absolutely fine. So 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, and we're going to commence this burn shortly. Now, I don't know where exactly we are in relation to the other vehicle. It's probably pretty close. It's not perfect, but it is pretty close. So let's go ahead and do this burn with monoprop. And I kind of want to see how much monoprop we have. A decent amount. Okay, yeah. So let's do it like this. We've got more than enough DV to do this either way, so this will be fine. This monoprop is going to be a little much, to be honest. 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, that's the wrong way. Excellent. Okay, we'll just let ourselves reposition a bit. This is very, very close. I'm going to call it good. Okay, monoprop off. We're in orbit. This is basically a polar orbit at this point. We're going to call that good. Beautiful. It's not exactly the orbit I'd like to be in. Really, I'd like to be in an orbit that is basically parallel here, but that's going to shift as we go around anyway. I'm not concerned about it. This is fine. We should have a good solid connection at most times to anywhere on the surface of Minmus with this setup. Approximately, anyway. So that'll be fine. At this point, we can head on back to the Space Center. And I kind of want to set up the same thing over Moon. So to that end, I want to do this one in a single launch. I would like to check our contracts first, though. Let's see what we've got available. Because we definitely completed a contract to dock around Minmus, so that's fine. That was finished last episode. At this point, temperature surveys near the moon, blah. Finish construction of a rover on the surface of the moon. Oh. That's new. They successfully landed a rover on a distant body. Due to some unforeseen litho-breaking hazards, certain parts of the rover are unfortunately no longer attached. I don't know that I'd call that super successful then. But okay, sure. We've got a flyby of Eve mission here, but I think for now, just getting the comsats around the moon is the way to go. So let's do that for now. I want to do 2 comsats with 1 launch here. And that is going to be this guy here. We can extend the fairing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the monoprop. We do not need this. But we can keep these docked together. So the idea here is that we would detach this decoupler like this. We would then duplicate the Protobodyne Octo, which apparently doesn't want to be duplicated. That's a little awkward. So, yeah, that's definitely awkward. We could just save this as the ComSat satellite. And then we could append in the ComSat satellite like this, and that should do the trick, in theory. We don't really have anything to attach it to, though. So, in that case, let's get rid of the Clampotron docking port, resave it, merge in another one, attach it like that, then we can put in the docking ports. That's a little awkward, no doubt about it. But we can then put in the docking ports like this. And there we go. We've got our 2 comsats. And then we can attach this here. We're going to have to redo the fairing, of course. So we're going to have to edit the fairing, pull this back a little bit, and bring this up. This is going to be a little heavier, so that is absolutely noted. I think a little bit more fuel in this stage is pretty okay. So we can take this from a T200 up to a T400. Just double that amount of fuel. And then I'm going to make this, instead of being bi-coupling, we're going to go to quad coupling here, just to have a little bit more thrust to weight off of the pad. That looks like 1.6. That's pretty solid. Yeah, that looks okay. So we've got more thrust up here. This should be plenty to get us to the moon, and once we get there, these should be pretty okay to do their maneuvering. I'm not too concerned about that. So, staging. And we should set this as the dual comsat at this point. Okay, so we'll save that as a dual comsat. This looks good. This looks good. Yes. Sure. And then these are going to be mildly awkward. Something kind of like that. Okay, so we'll save this, and let's try sending this to the moon. We should be fine on the liftoff here. I don't anticipate significant liftoff issues, so we could even say that this is not a simulated flight. If it crashes, we only lose a little bit of money. It's not a big deal. So yeah, no simulated flight on this one, and we are just going to go. And actually, that makes me think that in the future, maybe I should further limit simulated flights by having them be... let's go to Kilrot. Maybe we should further limit simulated flights by having them cost a little money to run the simulation. That might not be a bad idea. Okay, for now, let's go ahead and take this thing off. I see it swaying around in the breeze. That's not, ideal, but it should be okay. Definitely a little oscillation going on there on liftoff, but... So we'll have the same amount of burn time here, but we're carrying a little bit larger of a payload. So we've got a little bit more fuel in this stage from the hemispherical liquid fuel tanks. We could potentially boost up the thrust of the hammers here and add a little more fuel on the drop-off over here. It's not a terrible idea if this doesn't make it to where we want it to go. Hopefully it will. We've got about 20 seconds of burn time left here. I want to start bringing us over towards prograde. In fact, I'm just going to tell MechJeb to do this. We're going to stress test it a bit. Aerodynamics look good. I don't see any aerodynamic issue here. And we would expect that, to be honest. There might be an issue, though, here in a moment. This is going to be potentially spicy. Let's see what happens here. Okay. Awkward detachment, but, it's fine. I'm not very concerned about that, then. So that looks good. And we're having a good apoapsis height here. This is now 60. Let's stress test this by taking this over to the horizon. That's a rapid turn, but it is under control. Beautiful. Okay, that seems absolutely fantastic, then. We'll continue to burn here, build up a bunch of horizontal velocity, and we'll be ditching the mass of this heavier fairing shortly here. So that'll save us a little bit of fuel as well, but we're not quite high enough to ditch this yet. Although probably it would be fine at this point. I'm going to wait until 50. 48, 49, and it's gone. Excellent. So that's going to save us a little bit of fuel by ditching that mass. But as we can see here, we're a little low on fuel on this first stage. We don't quite have the speed we wanted to have at this point. Okay. So we've got this second stage here. It's got a lot of DV in it, and it's got good thrust to weight. So we should be fine on getting up into orbit here, but this is not the most efficient time to use this fuel. That's absolutely noted. So we're going to continue to burn here until an apoapsis of about 150. But we're definitely burning a little more fuel than we would have liked out of this. Okay, that's a little more than we needed, but that's fine. We'll need that altitude eventually anyway. So we may as well get ourselves into orbit here. Looks good. We're not going to need an inclination change going to moon, so keep that in mind. We're now officially in orbit, and let's go ahead and extend our solar panels. And extend our antennas as well on both of these comsats. Both comsats have a successful deployment. Of course, we know this. We don't have any mods that introduce failure chances installed, although that would be an interesting thing for future. Okay, so let's warp on through here. And we'll commence this burn shortly. So we only need 195 meters per second to get into orbit here. We've got a lot of delta V here, so this looks good. I'm quite pleased with how our delta V is looking right now. So we'll warp forward 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. I do want to boost up the power of that first stage a little bit, but overall, this is a decent design, I think. Especially considering we're delivering 2 satellites. So that seems okay. It's quite cheap as well, which I like. This is good enough as far as our orbit goes. We don't need to burn this 1.4 meters per second. So that'll be fine. Let's set moon as our target. That was focus view. Let's set moon as our target here. We can see that we have a 0.3 degree inclination. I don't care about that. Around the descending node, we're going to burn out this direction. That puts us in a reasonable periapsis, actually. I like this. That's a good encounter right there. Let's do it. So we're going to hop on over to this node, and let's make it to the moon. We're not going to have to do any crazy docking maneuvers or anything. We're just going to be pre-docked, and we're going to undock once we get there. So that looks good. This will be about a 40-second burn out to the moon. So let's warp on over. Excellent. So we should have absolutely no power issues, obviously. This is way more than enough power and more than enough DV. I don't see any problem here. Really nothing that I want to address on future flights here, except for I feel like that first stage burned out a little too fast. Okay, ignition now. And let's get this burn completed. I'm physics warping through the burn a little bit. We've got 20 seconds here. And 10 seconds. Coming out of the physics warp now. 2, 1, 0, and just a little bit off here. Okay, this is good enough. We'll put ourselves in kill rot, and what's that moon periapsis looking like? It's a little lower than I would have preferred, but that's fine. We can raise it back up. So we're going to hop over to the moon here, and we're going to bring ourselves into just barely in orbit. There we go. Something like that. And then at the apoapsis, we'll just raise this periapsis back up and circularize that. So that looks good for the time being. Okay, let's lock to that node, and let's get this burn underway. That's going to be 205 meters per second. So we'll have about 750 left over, a little under. That's absolutely fine. I'm not concerned about that right now. So that seems absolutely wonderful. And we'll have a lot of maneuvering DV left over in this, actually. So we're not going to have to burn, like, any of this. This would, I think... It'd be awfully close to making it to Duna, wouldn't it? It would make it to Duna, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would. So we can absolutely warp on forward here. We are heading to the moon. So we'll hop into the sphere of influence very shortly here. The next mission for us here is to start building a brief sort of habitation on the moon. I want to build an actual lunar outpost to learn how that all works in a place that's a little closer to Kerbal. That would be ideal. And it may fail. We'll see. If the Kerbals become, or rather, if the Kerbals become a little bit desiccated, that's okay. We'll just send a rescue mission to rehydrate them. So 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Excellent. So braking burn here, and let's bring this just barely into orbit. There we go. That is barely in orbit. Perfect. So at the apoapsis here, I want to raise this periapsis up. Our periapsis wasn't quite as high as I wanted it to be, so we can then put this into something like this, which is, again, just barely in orbit. Excellent. We want long period rotations here. Okay, so let's just put this in here. And this is so close to not being in orbit anymore that we might actually want to check when we do the undocking here. We might want to check to see that this thing remains in orbit. I don't know that it will. We've got 50 seconds, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0 mark. Okay, last little bit here. We're working our way over there. This is probably good enough. Are we in orbit? Yes. We are in orbit here. And this is definitely good enough. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put us on kill rot. And I'm going to point us retrograde at this time. You might ask, why are you pointing retrograde? The answer is I want to eject this in a way that holds this in orbit. Now, we can definitely adjust the orbit. We've got plenty of delta V in this comsat, so there's no concern about that whatsoever. But this would absolutely be ideal to remain in orbit. So let's go ahead and undock in the retrograde direction here, and we're going to drop off one of these communication satellites. There we go. Now I'm going to hop over to this guy, and let's see what our orbit is. Perfect. That'll be absolutely fine. We can even burn very, very slightly prograde here to cancel out this momentum here. So I'm going to set this guy as our target, and we can see 0.2. I'm going to go to target relative velocity minus. I'm going to massively thrust limit this guy. And we're going to very gently burn here to put ourselves in basically an identical orbit here. Is this engine active? It's not. Okay, there we go. So this is basically identical here. We're still moving a little bit. Okay, something kind of like this. This is fine. Beautiful. We don't want to redock. So as of right now, what we want to do is we want to then go somewhere around here. No. Hang on, I've changed my mind. I want to go somewhere around here and add a maneuver there. So that's going to end up being our polar maneuver. So we're going to need to do quite a lot of finagling to get a polar maneuver in there, but something along the lines of this. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit more retrograde, and then bring this back over here. Sure. This looks good enough. We could definitely try to dial it in a bit. Have the apoapsis be out over here. This is close enough. So we're going to put this into node, and look at this. We've got enough delta V in this to deliver this communication satellite. So yeah, I really do believe that we'd be capable of putting comsats over Duna, and also over Ike is the name of the moon of Duna, isn't it? Pretty sure that's Ike. So yeah, I think this design would be capable of doing that, especially if we souped up that first stage a little bit, which we could do. So for now, let's just do something like this, and yeah, we're moving away from this guy. That's absolutely expected. 50 seconds, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, so we can see our orbit shifting dramatically as we do this. We're going to get this last little bit relatively precisely here. We need to be fairly careful about this. We want to make sure we remain in orbit. This is about as good as we're going to get for now. We could fine-tune this, but I'm happy with this. So that looks good for now. That should put us in a position, and yeah, you can see that we're slightly awkward here, but as we go around, it'll be fine. So this is absolutely okay. We will have a communication signature with Kerbal most of the surface area of the moon here. So that should be great. It is about time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to start working most likely on our surface outpost on the moon, and that would be actually intended. Oh, we need to transmit or recover scientific data from space around the moon. That's really easy. We can do that right now. Hang on. Go into kill rot, please. And where is that too hot thermometer? Here it is. We're going to log that temperature, and we're going to transmit this back, and boom, contract complete. That's why we put the thermometer on here. Excellent. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.